4. Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before, this is Gabnet, the Great American Broadcast Network. Ladies and gentlemen, the history of talk radio. Political opinions have been a staple of radio since the early 1920s. Talk radio as a listener participation format has existed since at least the mid-1940s. WMCA New York's Barry Gray was bored with playing music and put a telephone receiver up to his microphone to talk with band leader Woody Herman. This was soon followed by listener call-ins. In 1948, disc jockey Alan Courtney began a call-in program on WGBS Miami. The Alan Courtney Open Phone Forum was a conservative and anti-communist political forum with coverage area over the southeast United States and Cuba. In the 50s, Joe Pine, John Nebel, and Gene Shepard were among the first to explore the medium. In recent years, talk radio has gained popularity with many new formats flourishing, including all sports in 1986 with the birth of WFAN New York. The subject matter for these formats are different, but the structure has remained the same for all these years. You might say talk radio is a 20th century format, until now that is. It's 2014. And radio pioneer and innovator Alex Bennett introduces the Citizen Panel on Gabnet, the first revolutionary idea in the format since its inception. The Citizen Panel allows for an open discussion to take place between the host and many listeners all at the same time. Listeners claim that it's addictive, producing stimulating discussions on any topic from politics to movies and entertainment. It's not liberal or conservative. It's open to all opinions and ideas. Log on to gabnet.net to listen and find out how you can participate. Listen to the programs on Gabnet and take a step into 21st century talk radio.
Hey everybody, this is Alex Bennett, host of the Ramble, heard here and seen here on Gabnet, Tuesday through Fridays, live at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and I got some big news for you. Our program has moved its live video from Facebook Live to YouTube Live. After extensive tests in our Gabnet laboratories of at least 10 minutes, our mind was made up and we've come to the conclusion that YouTube is superior not only in video quality, but audio as well. And then there's the ease of watching it. Here's what you do. Simply point your browser to youtube.com/Bolo Bennett /live. That's youtube.com/Bolo Bennett, BOLOBENNETT /live. And you're there. The player is waiting and you do nothing, and when the show begins, so does the player. Couldn't be simpler. In fact, tag that page as a permanent tab on your browser and you're ready to go. And if all of this is too vexing for you, well, just go to gabnet.net near showtime and the player in the middle of the page will start to play when we're on. We're thrilled with the new quality our move has provided, and while you're there, would you do me a favor and please subscribe to our channel? No, I beg you to. Hey, listen to me, I'm groveling, okay? I know, it's pathetic. I'm sorry, I'm debasing myself and I really shouldn't be. Please.
Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before, this is Gabnet, the Great American Broadcast Network.
Well, it's going to be a fill-free night. That's all. The coast is clear for all of you to call in about 25 minutes from right now. And we'll be here until, yes, we'll be here until midnight. Okay, we always start our calls in a very strange way to this person because the way he answers when we call. So let's call out to Las Vegas and see what happens. Here we go. It says connecting. There we go. There we go. There we go. Usually he does it on just a few.
Famous last words. That guy sees us. He'll stop. James Dean, September 30th, 1955. Hey, Richie, why is the ground coming up so close? Buddy Holly, February 3rd, 1959. Hey, looks like a friendly crowd. Malcolm X, February 21st, 1965. I got lots of them. Hey, sounds like more friends at the door. Let them in. Sharon Tate, August 9th, 1969. Fuck you, Pop. Marvin Gaye, April 1st, 1984. That's enough for now.
Let me see here. I got one. Here we go. I got one for you. By the way, this is Stephen Pearl. In case people
Thank you very much,
are wondering,
back. Still alive.
In case they're wondering, it is Stephen Pearl. Anyway,
he wondered, you kids.
Okay, how about this one? I think my scarf's caught in the Isadora Duncan.
Isadora Duncan, of course. And the answer is Isadora Duncan, John F. Kennedy, Jane Mansfield, and Hank Williams. Name three people seatbelts wouldn't have helped. Ding, 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 ding.
Who's your favorite automobile?
What's that?
Who's your favorite automobile accident?
Oh, my God. Well, the one that looked the best was Jan Berry from Jan and Dean, because if you saw the car, it looked like a crushed cube.
Yeah, but he
lived through it. It looked like when they take those cars and throw away, like the mob puts a body in the truck and they crush the car through a cube.
But he
That's
lived.
What the car looked like, and the guy, he barely lived through it was brain damage, but he lived through it still. So he lived through that.
But he lived. Crap. He lived. You know.
He lived for many, many years.
Yeah. Did he die finally? It
Yes, he died in 2004.
2004. Okay. Now, do you know?
Surf wasn't up anymore. Surf's down.
It was Dean Torrance, I think, that was supposedly implicated in the Frank Sinatra Jr. kidnapping.
Yeah, I think it was friends of his that did it. And I don't think he had anything to do with it. So, but it was friends of his that. And that's what happens. Nowadays, well, he's dead now, but in the later on, they couldn't have fit him in the trunk.
Well,
so
supposedly Dean Torrance didn't do it. It was these two goofballs, right? But Dean Torrance supposedly.
What we're going to do? Oh no, what we're going to do? And you'll see.
Dean Torrance, Jan and Dean, was supposedly implicated by the fact that he either financed it or was involved in it, but he didn't actually do it. Okay.
No.
You know.
Leave Dean alone.
Best performance in the trunk of a car goes to Frank Sinatra Jr.
Well, I thought they had Frank Sinatra to get big money for him. Then he started singing in the trunk of the car. We got the wrong one. Oh, crap.
Actually, Frank Sinatra Jr. wasn't bad.
No, both the kids have talent, Nancy and Frank Jr., and they can both sing. They say that he ain't his old man.
Well,
he can sing, and he wrote a song called Spice in the early 70s, which was a really good song that he sang, and if his father sang it, it would have been a stone hit.
Wow. Well, when I saw him or heard him perform, when he first started performing, he sounded so much like his dad, it was scary.
Sure.
You know, and later on, he wound up working for Dad as his musical director for his shows.
I think he conducted them for a while.
Yeah, when I saw him at the Circle Star Theater, he was conducting the orchestra. You know.
Two Sinatras for the price of one. The plural of Sinatra is Sinatra.
And in later years, he became famous for being on Family Guy.
That's right, yeah. A whole new generation is going to be Frank Jr. fans.
Now, a lot of people don't even know who we're talking about. But this was the son of Frank Sinatra. This was the son of Frank Sinatra, and he decided to have a career, and he was playing at, was it Harrah's? Or was it?
I don't know, somewhere in Tahoe or somewhere like that.
I think it was Harrah's, and he was kidnapped from his hotel room or his bungalow or whatever. And were they holding him for ransom, or what was the demand in the whole thing?
They wanted some money, I believe. I guess like that. And Frank gave up the money, but they caught the guys.
Yeah,
as they always do.
And didn't Frank also have the mob involved in trying to solve the kidnapping?
I think if he did, they would have found him a lot quicker. I don't know if they're good at finding guys, but I don't know what happened with that exactly.
But anyway, those guys went to jail, and they got out years later. And the whole story's never really, I don't think, totally been told, you know. You would have thought that it would have been a little more.
Do a movie about it. Do a movie about it. Find some young actor.
Wait a minute. I think.
Frank Jr.
Wait a minute. They did a movie. Oh, we just lost him. Son of a bitch. Let me call him back again. I don't know why. This happens every now and then with Skype, and we don't know why. Here we go. Come on, answer the phone.
Hey, Ray, what's going on here? Electronics.
I don't know. Lately, Skype on landline calls. Although I did one yesterday with Larry Bubbles, and no problem for 2.5 hours. You know, so
really, I should have brought my shell. What do you call it? The clam shell.
The clam shell or whatever. Yeah. Anyway, what were we saying?
1998.
Oh yeah, well, Frank, that whole story has never really truly been told, but I think there was a made-for-television movie about it.
Oh really?
Yeah,
I'd like to see that.
I can't remember when or what it was called, but I think they did make one. I mean, here you had this was a big drama when it took place because you had, I guess, the biggest performer in the world. As certainly one of the wealthiest performers in the world.
Oh, sure.
Frank Sinatra and his son gets kidnapped.
Yep.
And he's telling him, whatever you want, just don't hurt the kid. And
you only in $50, okay? That's all he's worth.
And there's film of Frank at the scene, when they were trying to find the who did it and trying to find Frank Jr., and he is really concerned. I mean, it's not like
it's just fun, no matter who you are, it's just fun, man.
It could have a lot of, I don't know if Frank Jr. was involved in the whole thing. In other words, I don't think it was a publicity stunt.
No, it wasn't. People said it was, but I don't think it was.
Yeah, I think it was two guys who thought did they know Frank Jr.? I know that Dean Torrance knew Frank Jr.
Yeah, I don't know. I know it was 2 weeks after Kennedy got shot, so
at least it happened. So. At least it got us off of that, because it became a national obsession. Where's Frank Jr.? Is he going to be okay?
Right,
And they found him. I mean, I think they left him by the side of the road somewhere, didn't they? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, they let him out. They took him outside and dropped him off somewhere. So start walking home, boy.
Yeah. But I read a book on Frank's life, and this particular incident was a huge chunk in the towards the end of the book about how Frank Jr. got kidnapped. But I mean, that's the price of fame. Okay. Now, on the other hand, did you think Nancy was any good?
I liked Boots was a good song, and I liked You Only Live Twice. She did a good job on that one, the theme to the James Bond movie. And what was the other she did with Lee Hazelwood Jackson? I like that one. She had a good voice. Yeah, she was hot looking. She had it going on.
She did her thing. Yeah,
she did her thing.
And she didn't.
Give her mini skirt and those boots, man. You're ready for action back then.
She never had the problem of being compared to Dad either, because she wasn't a guy. No.
No, exactly.
Even though she looked like
he wasn't named Frank. So.
Exactly. I mean, I'll tell you about people whose lives have been impacted by not their fame, but the fame of their parents. Yeah. I was interviewing Desi Arnaz Jr. And I said, it must have been hard to be you. And he said, why? And I said, because the most famous you ever were was the day you were born. Because you remember they did the whole thing about is Lucy going to give birth and so on, and they had an episode made where she gives birth, and it was in the can until the day they knew that birth was taking place, and then they ran it. Okay, and I said that the most famous you ever were was the day you were born, and I said you were so famous, and this is a piece of trivia, you were the first cover of TV Guide.
Oh, he was, huh? How about that?
Yeah. A baby picture of Desi Arnaz Jr. First cover of TV Guide. If anybody remembers what TV Guide was, and I said that must be a hell of a thing to live up to. And he said, you're right. That is the most famous I ever was. He said, I became famous later on because I was with Dino, Desi, and Billy, or whatever that group was.
Oh, God, yeah, sure. Dino, Desi, and Shlomo.
Yeah. But he said, and I got to be known for that, too. But he said, when you're talking about pure fame and everybody knowing about me, yes, I guess the day I was born was the most famous I ever was.
Yep.
You know.
Didn't even get to play himself on TV. They got another little Ricky.
Yeah. They got another kid to play him.
Yep. You can't play. You're too right for the part. We'll get someone else.
Later on in his mother's show, didn't he play himself? I'm trying to remember.
I think it's one. There was a Lucy show. Then Here's Lucy. Then How's Lucy. Then Why Is Lucy? Is one of those. I think.
And here's Lucy's face. Here's Lucy's face fogged out. You remember what they did with Lucy's face when she got older? They ran a fog over her face.
Oh, yeah. Put Vaseline on the lens.
No, it was literally done physically in the camera or something where.
Oh, really?
Wherever she went, there was just slight haze just right over her face. But no, her daughter, I know, was in one of the shows, playing her daughter, and I think he may have been on that show too. If I'm not mistaken.
I think he was. I'm not sure, but we all know Gail Gordon was on the show. She always used Gail Gordon.
Gail Gordon.
Mr. Gordon, are you gay? No, I'm a 90-year-old bachelor.
Was he gay?
I don't know. I never looked into that one, but I know he could do a perfect cartwheel, which was good for a guy of his age. And think about it, he was younger than I am now, so that's pretty scary.
The only people that would deny that somebody was gay more was the person that was gay in those days.
Yep.
I mean, they would.
I'm not gay, I'm festive.
Like, for instance, there are a lot of stories now that Spencer Tracy was either gay or bi.
Really?
Yeah.
Yikes, I never heard that one.
Now, go watch Spencer Tracy with that information and see if you can see it. I
know he was drunk most of the time.
Well, I was watching It's a Mad, Mad, Mad World the other night, and I watched him, and I said, could be, and that Katharine Hepburn, who loved him, was his beard, basically, and he may have been a beard for her.
Wow. Oh, man, you never know. You never know in Hollywood. Anything can happen.
It's funny, folks, we can say all this shit because they can't sue.
Yeah, what are you going to do? What?
Yeah. And now here's the one that got me. I have this friend, Jack Garfine, who he's 88 years old now, and he was a director in Hollywood and also a director at the Actors Studio. And he literally discovered, gave him his first job in a play, James Dean. And he and Dean were very close to each other. In fact, he was with Dean at the studio the day he got into the car and started driving up north.
Yikes. Oh, that's scary.
And his last words to him was, take it easy and be careful. Because he was afraid. What he was afraid of was that Dean was going to go up. He was going to some races up north. And he was afraid that Dean would get in the race. And he didn't want him to do that. And they were shooting Giant at the time. Yeah. And he was in a screening room watching rushes of Giant with Elizabeth Taylor, and the door opens and this guy walks in and whispers to Elizabeth Taylor, and she goes, "Oh my God!" And that's when they found out that James Dean was dead.
Yeah, damn you, Donald Turnipseed, you son of a bitch!
I said to him, what was the problem? See, I said the problem with Dean was he was closeted gay, right? And Jack, who knew him better than I ever did, said, absolutely not.
Aha.
So now I look at James Dean, and he doesn't look quite as gay as he used to look to me. But didn't you?
Wasn't there an Italian actress he was in love with, Pier Angeli or something? But her parents forbade him from marrying him. He's not Italian. You stay away from him. By the way, he might be bisexual.
He mentioned Pier Angeli to me and said they were very, there's a perfect case where you can see that he's heterosexual. He said he wasn't gay, and that just changed my whole way I thought about James Dean. I just assumed that he was closeted and that was the big secret, and whatever.
Yeah.
Didn't you always hear that he was gay?
Sure. I heard that he liked to have people put cigarettes out on his body and all kinds of sick
Well,
stuff.
that's not being gay.
That's just being fucked up.
That's just being fucked up, exactly.
Yeah.
But I
The human ashtray, I don't believe it, though.
Yeah, but anyway, so when you talk about kids who are the children of famous people, that's got to be the worst thing to deal with, especially if then you kind of think of going into the same business because you got a leg up on it,
Sure.
And
Julian Lennon, whose new album is called "Genius Is Not Hereditary."
Julian Lennon was terrible.
Well, I like those 2 songs he did, and after that, it was like downhill. So.
Well, it wasn't he was terrible. Here's what happens: if Julian Lennon had come along and he hadn't had a famous father and he had performed, the question would be: would he have had a hit? Would he have had people pay attention to the music that he was doing? And if you can say yes independently of that, then maybe he was better than we thought he was. But the trouble is that when you're the son or the daughter or whatever of a famous person, you're expected, if you're going to perform, to be as good as they are. They're all sitting there with their arms folded, going, show me. And I'm trying to think of people who actually topped their father, and one of them that I can think of is Alan Alda.
Alan Alda and Sammy Davis Jr.
No.
Sammy Davis Sr.
No, but Alan Alda's father was an actor. Robert Alda played George Gershwin in the George Gershwin story. I think it was called Rhapsody in Blue was the name of the movie. And his father was a very famous actor. I think he's actually had a bigger career than...
he was in Guys and Dolls on Broadway in the 50s.
Yeah, but I think he had a bigger career than his father. It certainly, certainly far more durable over the years.
Yep.
But who else am I thinking of? There's some others that have been very successful in spite of their parents. Kiefer Sutherland's been pretty successful.
Yeah, he's done well.
He's done well. And nobody compares him to his father.
That's true. He looks a bit like him too, so you'd think they would. But I think Donald's busy doing voiceovers for Buick commercials or whatever. And Buick. Do I sound stoned enough? I'm Donald Sutherland.
Well, Donald Sutherland has had a long career in and of himself.
Sure.
A lot of these people hold on to it. But I'm trying to think who else famous had some kids that tried it and didn't make it.
The Crosby Boys in a way.
Oh well, that's the classic story.
Oh yeah, the Bing Crosby Boys. The Crosby.
He had what? He had 5 boys. Was it 5 or 4?
Bing, Bang, Boom, Bubba, and Peppy.
I think there were 5, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know how many there were. Well, they had 2 sets of kids from 2 different marriages. So.
Yeah, well, but I think he had a total of he had 2 with Catherine, I think. But the 5 boys, or the 4, were they 4 or 5? I can't remember. Anyway, the boys,
I don't know.
The boys were just horrible. I mean, they were always getting in trouble. And then at one point, I think Gary tried to have some musical hits. I think Sam's Song. Here's a little tune they love to croon. They call it Sam's Song. I think he did that, and it was actually a hit. But people only paid attention to him because he was Bing's son.
Exactly.
And the rest of them, they all got together at a certain point and started a group. The Crosby Boys or whatever.
Crosby Boys.
And Bing, who was the world's worst father, at least the first time around, because what he call one of them Bubble Butt because he was fat.
Come on, Bubba, it's a birdie. Get the ball.
They Bubble Butt. Anyway, he decided that he would help them out and put them on his special singing, and then he sang a song with them. And that was the extent of him trying to help their career. Their lives were just a mess. I think they were divorced so many times that they can't even count the amount between the 5 of them or 4 of them or however.
Yeah, I think there were a couple of suicides in there. So.
Was there a suicide?
I think these boys bit the bullet. One blew his brains out with a bullet, and the other took too many barbiturates, and they buried them both.
Yeah. Yeah, he was supposedly a terrible father. Just horrible.
Yeah, the Hollow Man.
Well, he was, he was Catholic, and he was kind of politically right wing.
Oh yeah, sure. All those old timey Hollywood Republicans.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. I mean,
that much money, you can automatically be a Republican.
On the other hand, you want to talk about a real liberal. Sinatra was one of the biggest liberals in Hollywood. I mean, he
in the 40s and 50s, and then something happened. He made his millions.
No. Here's what happened. To begin with, his mother Dolly was a real liberal. She had always been a card-carrying member of the Democratic Party. You know, I mean, she was a big follower. Okay, besides being a great abortionist. But anyway. That's another story. No, she was a midwife, folks, and she believed that people should be able to give up their children, and if they didn't want to give birth to them, and she knew how to do the procedure. Okay, that's the best way of putting it. And
Take him to Dolly.
I look upon
Dolly. You don't want that brat. You don't want to send him to school. You don't want to lend him the car keys. Take him to Dolly.
I look upon her as an early hero in that respect. Okay.
There you go.
So anyway, so he became a diehard Democrat. I mean, just. Died in the wool. And I mean, he went out, he did everything he could for race relations. A song, The House I Live In, you may remember that one, was a whole plea to, he made a film about it. And he was the guy who, said, unless Sammy Davis Jr. can stay in the hotel we're staying in Vegas, we're not working the hotel. And so he was just the best when it came to being a left winger. The reason he turned right wasn't because his politics changed. He turned right because Kennedy pissed him off. Kennedy was supposed to come see him in Palm Springs, and he built even a special house for the Secret Service to stay in. He spent like $1 million getting the place ready for the president to visit. And at the last minute, Jack's father said, "Don't go hang out with that mobster. It's not good for you." And instead, he went and stayed with Bing Crosby.
Yeah, who was a Republican.
And that so depressed Crosby.
That's what got
Sinatra.
Peter Lawford kicked out of the Rat Pack.
That's what absolutely just turned the whole thing in another direction. Yeah. He suddenly, I think, started campaigning for Nixon and doing things like that. But it was all because he was mad at what Kennedy did to him.
Yeah. I don't give a crap about Vietnam, Jack. I just want to get in good with Tricky Dick.
Yeah. And then, of
Dick
course,
will stay with me. Dick loves to stay with me.
Of course, you remember the kiss of death for the career of Sammy Davis Jr. was when
God! Why did you do it, Sammy? Why do you hug me?
Wait a minute. Let me tell the audience. He hugged Richard Nixon. At some rally he was singing for. And every black in America hated him after that.
Oh, sure, yeah. Man, they don't understand, man. I was trying to get in close with the administration so they'd help our people, man.
I mean, either it's on now or it's going to be on, but there's a special on PBS on American Masters on Sammy Davis Jr. and on his life. And I'm sure that's part of it. It's got to be.
Yeah.
It's just got to be. So anyway, the only thing wrong with being the son of somebody famous is you and I weren't, and we had to just struggle,
That's right. Struggle it's hard getting to the middle, but here we are.
Yeah. Anyway, hey, listen, we have run out of time, I guess.
Alrighty, my God, geez,
my time has flown, and I always have fun talking with you because you can remember all the old stuff.
Yeah, Mr. Trivia, that's me.
And
all kinds of useless information in this market.
And I feel that people who can't remember the past are doomed to repeat it. So
that's right.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Steve. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, Alex. Looking forward to talking to you again. Stay well, my friend.
Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before. This is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network.
And, oh, wait a minute. We don't want to do it that way. Here, do it real smooth. There we go. That's for all of you who are listening to us, watching us with the video. Those who aren't watching us with the video have no idea of what I just did or care what I just did. Okay, let me see. Let me bring up the Skype lines here so that we're ready to go with that, so that when people call, we can talk to them. The Skype lines are open, ladies and gentlemen. The Skype lines are open. And you can call if you want, and we'll be happy to talk with you, and with ya, as it were. And I think everything's fine. I think, I don't know, I had the interview was a little on the low side, but I can't figure out why, because it was on the, I don't know. Anyway, hello, how are you? How's your evening doing? I'm a little happier today than I was last night, because, you know, I told you about our friend Jack Garfine, who had a little situation that got him in the hospital, but supposedly he's doing okay. So keep the fingers crossed. I'm going to try and go over and see him tomorrow. But anyway, give us a call. Phil is not calling tonight, so that means that Tommy Yamaguchi can call, and Scott Boddicker can call, and guess who's calling right now? Yeah, if we go over there, there he is, ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Stein. Hello, Jeff.
Good evening.
Good evening. Oh, you're very, very smooth. Good evening. Yeah. Anyway, I'm trying to wake up here, have some coffee. Then I wonder why I can't go to sleep, you know.
I'm not supposed to have coffee anymore, so.
Really? When did that edict come down?
Oh, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, or something like that.
Oh, okay. So so what do you do to wake up?
I guess I don't wake up.
Well, if you don't wake up, you really got problems, you know. But
actually, my wife usually puts the light on. It always gets me.
Didn't I read somewhere recently, though, that they suddenly found out that coffee was good for you?
My cardiologist doesn't believe it.
It doesn't believe it. Okay.
No, I got to ask her. Yeah.
What other things, because of the ticker, what other things do you have to stay away from?
I'm trying to remember. There's one regular vegetable that you would. I can't remember what it is.
Like tomato or something like that?
No, it's some unusual one, and I don't particularly like it anyway, and I can't remember what it is. But there's one that affects. It must affect the medications.
Yeah. So, anyway, hello to Rob Alfano, who's here. And Charles Wallace is going to be joining us any second now, unless he's got some problem connecting. Are you there, Charles? Huh.
Not yet.
Well, I brought him in, but apparently he's got some kind of problem. So he'll call back. Here we go. For some, I don't know why that happened, but and now he's there. We go. What happened, Charles? You called.
I don't know.
And then I answered.
I had problems last night with Skype.
I answered, and then you weren't answering, and then you left, and then you started coming back and whirling around. So
I never did anything. Once I dialed the call in, I never touched it again. And we did it all by itself.
Who knows? It's probably Skype knows I'm using an old version of Skype, and they're out to fuck me over. That's what it's all about. Hello to Josh Wheeler. Hello, Josh.
Hello.
Good evening to you.
You too.
Gee, we have a nice panel already assembled here. So anyway, got burning eyes tonight. How's the weather where you are, Rob?
Well, we got about 6-7 inches of snow today.
Really?
Whoa.
Really? We got snow, and I was going to go work out, and then since I need any excuse possible not to work out, I said, "Oh, it's snowing. I better not go out." So I didn't go work out. So. And then I stayed home and I did something You know, we have the website is and all the audio and stuff is being served by files that are kept on GoDaddy. All right, and they used to be really good. You know, you'd call them up and the guy would answer the phone and he would say, "How can I help you? Here are the good times that we're having at GoDaddy." And you tell him the problem and he looks at things. He says, "That's not working. Let me see what I can do about it. Let me call somebody or let me talk to my supervisor." Wait a minute. And they get back to me and say, "Well, we'll get that taken care of. Thank you for calling." Now you know what happens? You call this guy every time. This has been happening for the last, maybe 2 years now. You call, and the first guy says, "How can I help you?" And you say, "Well, you know, in this particular case, my statistics for how many people were listening to the files and so on isn't coming up. It takes me to a page that says it's down on the server or something like that." And the guy says, "Well, what is your, but I did this all with chat. What is your, secret number or whatever?" And I gave it to him. I gave it to him in a secure fashion. And he said, "I'll check." And he checked it and he said, "By golly, you're absolutely right. There is a problem there. I'm going to have to send you over to hosting."
Oh boy.
Now, every time I ever call, it's not like this guy can ever solve the problem. His job, and his only job, is to say, I'm going to have to send you over to hosting. So I get sent over to hosting, and now we're waiting on that one for another, 10 minutes. And finally I get hosting, and the guy goes, what's your special number, your PIN number? And we did that whole thing again. He says, "I'll go check." So now I'm sitting here for another 5 minutes, and then he comes back on. He says, "I checked it. It isn't working. I'm going to have to go to, I don't know, number 2, I think is what he called the people." He said they're going to have to check it out. So I said, "Well, okay, go do that, and I'll talk to you later." And he said, "Oh, no, you have to stay here while they check it out." And I said, "Well, wait a minute, this is ridiculous. Why do I have to remain here while they check it out? Can't you just check it out, and then if it isn't working, fix it?" "No, you have to be here." I said, "If I hang up now, what's going to happen?" "Well, you're going to have to call back and initiate this all over again." So I say, "Okay, I'll do it." And since it was chat, I went and cooked dinner. I did, really. And I kept checking every now and then to see what was happening. Finally, I get a thing back from him that says, the number 2 people, or whoever they were, whatever this group was called, checked it out, and yes, you have a problem. Here's your ticket number. Yeah. We'll let you know what's happening. Huh? I sat around to get a ticket number. You couldn't continue doing this without me being on the line. What was I going to offer to this whole process by being on the line? So now we go over to Rob Alfano, who will give me the explanation.
The reason is because if they need to hold on to you. If they don't hold on to you, then the next one comes through, and then they can't help you.
What?
It's an automatic thing, right? So when they're done with, notice that anytime you call tech support, they say, "Hold on a second," and they have to finish the ticket. When they close the ticket, they let you go. The phone rings again. They have no way of controlling that. So if they let you go, they're going to have to go on to the next problem.
Okay, but they went, but
with your problem.
But they knew I had a problem. I reported it. They should have just taken it and run with it. Okay? Instead,
but they can't, because those guys are phone, or they're bound to the technology. So they can't shut off. They're on shift and they're sitting there, and they're going to take the next person in the queue.
So unless I stay online,
that's right,
they can't continue the process of checking out the problem.
The minute you hang up,
and the only time that they can finally let me go is when they have issued a ticket number.
When they're right, so they can move on to the next thing. Otherwise,
that is so fucked, Rob.
Well, that's the way the the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, but I don't get it. It just makes no sense. I mean, it doesn't.
Well, it does if you're familiar with how these things work. It makes perfect sense. They don't have they don't they can't. They have to put. They get constant boom. Next. When they say you're the third one in the queue or you're the fourth one in the queue or whatever, the shit just comes fast and furious. As long as they got you, and they let you go.
Yeah,
and they're on to the next person's problem. So it's just the way help desks work.
This makes no sense whatsoever. It just doesn't. You know, I mean,
it makes sense from a technology perspective. You may not like it from a customer service perspective because they don't have time to research your problem with you not on the phone.
Because because once I'm not on the phone anymore, the phone will ring and they have to pick it up.
It's a queue system.
Oh man!
And the other problem with that is they get graded by how quickly they pick up that next call.
Yeah.
So really, what we're saying is this whole system is fucked, and it's working against me as the consumer.
Well, yeah, you could look at it that way. Part of it also is, and I usually like it when they don't hang up, because at least I know they're working on it. If they hang up, I never know what's going on.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that that I get an answer before I get off the phone, and it's resolved.
Yeah, but I got to tell you, when I first started with GoDaddy, which had to be maybe 4 or 5 years ago, right? When I went with them 5 years ago, I would call up and they would solve the problem on that first call. There was none of this wait online. We've got to do that. I've got to send you to the next thing, and I've got to send you to hosting. I mean, why did you even pick up anyway? If all you had to do was send me to hosting, why don't they just send me to hosting immediately? But I mean, it used to be that we got the problem solved when I made the call. They went click, 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 and they went, or if it was a problem that was something this guy couldn't solve, he said, I will put a ticket in for you and we'll work on it. And that was it. Get me off the fucking phone. Get to your next caller. Yeah,
I think some of it is it's the basic, however busy the next level of support is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if they have that next level of support, or if they're doing it all themselves.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I guess I'm just old fashioned, and I want customer service. And I don't think this amounts to customer service. This is a very annoying process.
I just replaced my Wi-Fi networking here with one of those mesh networks, Orbi, the Netgear Orbi.
Yeah.
And I was up till 3 o'clock in the morning on the phone with them last night because I couldn't get it to work right. There's a satellite that's over here to this way, right by the TV set, and then the main router is in my office. They're not that far from each other, and they kept disconnecting. They connect through a back channel, through a radio somehow or whatever.
Yeah.
And I would connect it, and then boom, it's gone. And I would connect it, and boom, it's gone. And I've got so many smart
explain
devices.
to people who don't know what we're talking about. These mesh networks are what? They are all, they're different little boxes that are all linked to each other, right? One talks to the next one and so on.
Right, and so you can move around the house, and it seamlessly moves you from device to device, so you always have a strong Wi-Fi signal.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
But the one in here, this what they call the satellite, kept disconnecting. And I was on the phone 4 or 5 times yesterday, and I thought it was resolved. And then after I got through with Gabnet last night, I noticed that the satellite was off. I couldn't get it to reconnect. I got on the phone, and then you get a guy on the phone. First off, he's from India.
Oh, geez. And he doesn't speak your language.
Oh my God! And I'm saying, excuse me, can you repeat that? I'm sorry. Can you say that again? Until I get fed up.
I get fed up, and I just say, let me talk to somebody that speaks English.
Yeah, good luck with that, because I called 9 times yesterday, and it was all the same. There's no one that speaks English.
Yeah.
So I finally, and what's annoying is they tell you, okay, you gotta reboot it. Okay, so I'm rebooting it, and it takes a long time for this thing to reboot. You see lights on the top and and he keeps telling me, he goes, okay, now do this. I'm like, dude, it's not finished booting. I just told you the light on the top is magenta. don't you know that magenta means it's not connected yet? So I was losing my shit with them last night because it was at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm thinking I got to go to work in the morning, and I need I need this ready for the morning because I work from home. So I need internet, and I need, I got all this stuff I got to get done. And so then even today, I had a problem where I had my FiOS router.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my laptop connected to that. I moved all my smart home stuff to the new Orbi.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize it though. I had two networks going on. I had a 192, 168.
Well, don't you're going to confuse people with stuff like that.
I had two different networks. One on the FiOS router,
mm-hmm.
and everything else on the Orbi, which was the 10 network.
Right. Okay.
So those networks aren't going to talk to each other. And I'm wondering why my printer won't connect to my machine, my work laptop. And I finally realized it. So now I call Orbi and they say you have to call Verizon. I call Verizon and I spent 2 hours on the phone with them today.
You know, Verizon, you bought your Orbi through Verizon, right?
I did not.
Oh, okay, because
you can buy it from them.
Yeah. Maybe that's where you went wrong.
Well, I got it for a steal. That's the only reason why I bought it.
No.
It's like $390 and I paid $185 for it.
Oh, okay.
So
well,
that's why
you know what I found that's kind of interesting though, and people out there listening will be able to follow along with this because it's not big and technical. But I just got a new TV set in the living room, and I've always had trouble getting a decent signal, Wi-Fi signal, to any of the things I had in there, were like a Roku and a old Apple TV and so on. And I installed this new TV set, and it's got a built-in Roku and everything. I hook it up. It's picking up a great signal. It's like 100% picking up a great signal. It seems as though the Wi-Fi units in these TV sets and stuff are now stronger than they used to be and more sensitive than they used to be. Because I'm getting a great signal where I'm watching 4K in there on Netflix, for instance.
On Wi-Fi.
On Wi-Fi, yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, so I think that what they're doing is they've improved the whole Wi-Fi thing. That it is just all the newer pieces of equipment that are coming out, the built-in Wi-Fi is just stronger than it used to be.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. Anyway, so anyway, I was doing this chat for about a half hour, and I'm going, this is insane, and then I've got this other server thing up in Canada that I use, and those guys, I don't think they even speak English when I call. I think they're pawning me off. They don't even have the best kind of customer support from India. They've got the one that doesn't know English yet. And I mean, you don't understand a word they're saying.
And they're asking you to do stuff, right?
Yeah. Yes. Make sure that you have the thing in the body. What? I don't understand a word you're saying, pal. And I don't want to be racist about this, but do you know anybody there that speaks English? And I'll tell you though, I did have a bad time once. But it was with the cable or something. And I called the cable company, and I get this guy who comes on like talking like this and telling me blah, 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 blah. And I said, pardon me, but what country are you in? He says, I'm in Arizona. Turned out he was, no, and in fact, I don't even think it was Arizona. I think it was Long Island. Wow. I mean, it was just somebody who didn't speak very well. So maybe they go, does this guy have a big enough accent that we can hire him for customer support? Yes, Jeff. Turn on your microphone, Jeff.
My wife's grandmother used to say, "Speak United States."
Speak United States. Yeah, it's wonderful. There used to be a time when all customer support was here. I had friends who worked in Silicon Valley, and a lot of them made a very nice living doing customer support. And these guys were also nerds. So they would really help somebody. They knew what the technology was. The new guys who answer the phone don't know the technology. They've just got a little manual in front of them. And if you say such and such isn't working, they type in on their computer, such and such isn't working. And then all they do is they just get an answer they don't even understand. You know,
it's a flow chart.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have a flow chart they follow. If you say yes, they go this way. If you say no, they go this way.
Yeah. So, I would just like, I don't know. I guess I'm an old fart, right? You know. Yes, Jeff.
I think the older programs, I'll say 20, 30 years ago, the whole concept was much less sophisticated. It was very simplified.
Yeah.
And therefore, it was easy to answer the questions because you only had 7 questions.
Yeah.
Now you got 3,000 questions.
Well, yeah, but it's the idea that these people really don't know anything, and they're just told a process to go through, and that's not what I call customer support. You know, and the reason they gave up on all those nerds down in Silicon Valley was they could do it cheaper by farming it out to India. You know, absolutely. Or customer support in Bangladesh. I don't know. Somebody.
And it's not even that they don't have smart people there that can do it. They don't want to pay even there. The way they have it designed is they have figured out 95% of the problems can be answered using the flow chart. And so the ones that can't, then they have to spend a little money and get some people who understand.
Well, let's go to the extreme. Let's go to the extreme of customer support. And that's something like Skype, where they don't even have a phone number you can call. They don't even have a chat room a chat line you can go to. You've got to go to like an FAQ thing and hope that your answer is there because they don't want to fucking talk to you. I got to tell you, folks, Microsoft is mean. They're nasty. What they've done to us and the people who love Skype and so on in their silence is just absolutely brutal, you know? And they should eat shit and fucking die. And with that, my Skype will now collapse. Yeah, I'm sorry, you can't say that Microsoft can eat shit and die. You can say a lot of other things on Skype, but you can't say that, you know. Somebody wrote a thing on one of the, I'm going around the web looking for answers to my Skype question, which I still don't have an answer to. And none of you seem to have come up with it. And usually Rob has an answer or somebody. But I still can't figure out how I get people in a group. That's my biggest problem. I have a way of putting their pictures on once I get them. But anyway, so I go online, and one guy wrote, and he wrote quite nicely. So on the Microsoft thing, I knew the day that Microsoft bought Skype. It would be 5 years to the date that they would fuck it up. And that's pretty much their modus operandi over there at Microsoft, right? I mean, how's this company kept its doors open all these years?
I think they bought Skype for the name.
Really?
I really do. I believe they bought Skype because they were calling Skype for Business, right? Because it's a recognized name. I think that they bought Skype because Skype for Business is not Skype. It's what was called Link. It's a Microsoft product that used to come originally with the Exchange server and then with their communications server. And now they call it Skype for Business.
Is it? Do they still have Skype for Business? I thought they collapsed that.
Yeah, they still have Skype for Business. And that's what we use on my job. We use Skype for Business, but it's really not Skype. It's a completely separate system.
It looks completely
they just wanted
different.
The name. Yeah, I think they just wanted the name, and they keep regular Skype going because it's a completely different technology.
Could I put a group together easy with it?
No.
Oh,
it requires
a master's degree.
No, well, it requires an administrator.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have ever felt this way, but there are days where I have just said to myself, I don't need this anymore. I just got to stop it all, because every day it's another little technical glitch or problem or something that doesn't work right or whatever, and that takes another hour, 2 hours out of my life. And why don't I just pull the plug and just say to hell with it? You know, I mean, maybe the Luddites had a good idea in the first place. You know, but anyway. So, anyway, we don't have Phil here tonight, so you're free to talk about our lousy fucking asshole motherfucking cocksucking president, who is a traitor to his country. So, anybody have a comment? Oh, tonight we can talk freely without inciting Phil into some kind of diatribe, huh? Oh, well.
There's nothing really new.
Yeah.
Well, what's new is what's old is new again, is what it keeps happening.
Actually, there is something new. CNN is reporting that the Mueller investigation could end by mid-next week.
Wow. And then we are stuck with this new guy. What's his name? The new Attorney General.
Right.
Deciding what he's going to release of the Mueller report. Because it's at his behest. What happens is Mueller doesn't release a report. In other words, he doesn't send it off to the printing bureau and they have him print up a bunch of them so he can pass them out. He sends it to the Attorney General. The Attorney General is the one who finally publishes the report, either in a redacted form or in any form that he wants to, leaving out the things he doesn't consider important.
Right.
But we'll never see it then.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it depends on how honest this new guy is, you know.
I think it'd be a real big backlash if they don't release it. So I think it'll be released.
Plus, you do at least have a democratically controlled House of Representatives right now that could sue to have the entire thing released. You know, I think there's a decent chance if it wasn't, they could probably take that action.
Yeah.
They probably would, I would assume.
Yeah. But
I mean, especially considering the fact that some of them, I would think, are going to be entitled to the full report. You know, members of the Intelligence Committee, or you know, at least a couple. Yeah. I mean, all it's got to do is take one top-ranking Democrat to see the, you know, the quote-unquote cover-up, you know, or whatever. I mean, so I mean, I don't think they're going to be able to, you know, to hide it, because I mean, and if nothing else, I almost feel like, don't you guys feel like, if nothing else, if that were to happen, that somebody in the Justice Department that had a copy would probably leak it and risk their career?
Yes.
I think
it'll get leaked.
Yeah.
I mean, if it were like something definitive, I mean, if they had a smoking gun in there and they didn't, you know, release it, I think someone would do that.
Yeah. You know, they say it's not going to be as big a report as you think it's going to be. It's not like the Starr report, which was huge, was massive. Yeah. This thing, they say, is going to be pretty much to the point, you know. And who knows what Mueller has found out? I don't think, it may not be as bad as we'd like it to be, but it may not be as good as Trump would like it to be.
I think what's coming out of the Southern District of New York is probably going to be a little bit more of consequence to Trump.
In what respect?
Well, that's the legal stuff. The other stuff is all political, right? All of this stuff is everything Mueller's doing, all of this is political. Are they going to, indict a sitting president? The question about that, whether or not that goes back to would it be the Supreme Court to determine if that's the case, or would that be just the policy from the Justice Department? I don't know. But what's coming out of the Southern District of New York is legal, and you know, is his son, Eric.
My question is though, can somebody like the Southern District of New York charge the president with something, or do they have to wait till he's no longer president? You know,
I mean, how about if it's not the president? What happens if it's the president's family?
Oh, I would love to see it. I would love to see it.
Exactly.
I would love to see
those guys. And I'll tell you what, he's so concerned that he went to the AG and he told the AG to put one of his. There's a guy in New York who was on worked in the campaign, and he asked him to put him in charge of the Southern District of New York investigation, which he recused himself. The AG recused himself.
Oh, really?
He did the right thing. But Trump's worried about that.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's been pretty clear for a long time, if you ask me, that he is a very, very likely tax evader and money launderer, and sometimes wise guy. I mean, well, if just a sensible person looked at it and you could remove your political bias from it, I mean, if this were an episode of Law and Order, we'd be ready to lock the guy up.
If he isn't a wise guy,
right?
If he isn't a wise guy, he does a very good impression of one. I mean, that's pretty much my take on it.
I mean, just the whole thing that he did with Michael Cohen, threatening him, threatening his father-in-law, and that's why Michael Cohen hasn't testified yet. He's postponed twice. Yeah. He's scared shitless.
Cohen just got the judge to push up his date of going to jail because he had a broken arm or something like that, and he wants it to heal, and and also because he may be testifying before Congress. I just wonder, if I were Cohen, though, I mean, I'd want him to say, look, don't put it off. In fact, make it closer. I want to just get it over with, because how long is he realistically going to spend in jail anyway? I don't
know. The anticipation has got to be worse.
I think 3 years is the sentence, isn't it? Something like that. And with good behavior, he could be off in 30 days. I don't know how they do that thing, but
well, plenty of time to write his book in prison.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure that's what's coming. I mean, I would have to think that after all this is done and over with, and he's out of all the entrapments of the lawyers and he's free and clear, I mean, that's his ticket back to having some money. I mean, I'm sure it's to write a book, I would think.
And what's his name? Who's the other guy? The guy that makes the Nixon sign all the time.
Roger Stone.
Roger Stone is going to write his book in prison. It's going to be called Mein Kampf, and it's
that guy's a piece of shit.
What?
Sorry, what? That guy's a piece of
Stone's a piece of shit, but I somehow find him fascinating. Because the man has absolutely no morals whatsoever. And he is fearless.
He puts up the judge's picture with a what you call crosshairs next to it.
Yeah, you may as well do this.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a method to that madness. I mean, if you tell the judge to fuck himself enough times and you put a target up with his face on it, and then he says don't talk to the press, and you talk to the press, by the time it goes to court, you could probably get that judge thrown out because he's prejudiced against you. I think that
already.
Huh?
No, I think he tried that.
Yeah.
And the judge said no way.
No, but if you have a chance, if you have Netflix, there's a documentary called Get Me Roger Stone, and it's fascinating. It is just absolutely fascinating. You walk away being fully entertained by the guy.
Yeah.
But not liking him, but fully entertained by him. He's a showman, if nothing more, and he loves what's going on right now. He loves being arrested. He was an unindicted co-conspirator in Watergate. Did you know that?
Yes.
And he loved that because he was a kid at the time, and he said, "I love being a part of this. I'm glad they thought enough of me to make me an unindicted co-conspirator." So
well, he's got a gag order on him, so he can't speak. He can't do his show. He can't do anything.
Is that legal, Josh? Do you know something about this kind of stuff? Is that illegal to tell somebody that he can't talk to the press?
Yeah, sure. They can get a court order to impose an order sometimes on both sides, the prosecution and the defense. It usually applies to all sides, as far as I know. I mean, just to be able to, in high-profile cases, to stop basically you know, what you can call like legal jury tampering, you know, polluting the jury pool or whatnot. I mean, you know, basically he's out there every night, you know, on a TV channel telling his story, and the prosecution's not, you know, because that's not what, you know, the prosecution, you know, does in this country or should do. And, and you know, it's like a constant one-way, you know, just one-way microphone that people only hear his side of the story for months at a time before the trial ever starts.
Yeah. Now, Paul Manafort's probably going to prison for the rest of his life at the rate that's going. You know, and he, you know, he might get a pardon from Trump, but Trump better be president when he needs that pardon. That's the problem. I
can't believe how many people that have rubbed shoulders with Trump and have now ended up basically in the dumpster.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be like the biggest regret of their life, and I don't understand why there are still yet seemingly so many people openly willing to still kiss his ring. I mean, I guess I misunderstood or underestimated how, you know, power hungry Americans really are. I guess. I mean, there's some people in this country apparently are so desperate to sit in the same room as the throned king that you know, they'll do anything.
Well, let me bring this up, and I may be wrong on this, but I don't think so. I think there were more convictions and indictments of people associated with an administration under Reagan than there have been under Trump. I think Reagan had an amazing amount of them. What?
There were a bunch under Reagan, yeah.
Yeah. But it seems as though this really looks like a New York street gang.
It's the kind of thing that Giuliani used to prosecute when he was with the Southern District of New York.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so funny though that if all these people had not hooked up with him, they could have just continued on, you know, laundering their money and you know, making their way in life and, you know, wearing their $1 million suits or whatever, and you know, and then yet they got so desperate for like, you know, 15 minutes in the spotlight or whatever, and now what do any of them have to show for it? I mean, they're all going to jail.
Well, why would anybody want to have anything to do with Trump? I mean, really,
power.
But he never had power. He wanted you to think he had power, but really he was a failed businessman. And
I was talking about him as president, because him as a businessman, you're 100% correct. The NFL didn't want him. They colluded to keep him out.
Things were so bad for him that no bank would loan him money in this country, and the reason he loves Russia is Russia was loaning him money. Okay? So, you know, the Russians were saving his ass. This is a failed businessman. But, you know, the yuts out in buttfuck doesn't know that. They watch him on television and say, oh, that's the guy from The Apprentice. He's a multi-billionaire. He knows how, you know, he's a businessman. And what they did is, what's his name? Burnett, the guy who produced the show. Fuck him. What he did is he set this guy up to be president of the United States with good lighting.
I think unwittingly,
you know, did you ever watch that show and see the way they would light him and so on, so that he looked just almost godlike in his presence, you know? Just amazing, just amazing. Hello, Bree. Bree's calling us from Dubai.
Yeah, Alex.
How you doing today?
I'm here to defend Trump.
You're here to defend Trump. Well, have at it. I don't know how you can possibly do it, but...
Well, first, I got to put you on hold, Alex, and I got to get your special pin from you.
Oh.
Very good.
And then I got to pass you to the number 2s, and eventually you'll reach Phil.
Yeah, well, no, I'll tell you what happened with the pin number. They actually do a thing where they put a thing on that they put the pin in, and it says that's secure. Now, how do I know it's secure? You know? Yeah. And I don't care if anybody has my PIN number. I don't care if anybody wants to steal my identity, because, you know, they can have no life. You know what I'm saying? You know, Marjorie got her identity stolen because her wallet, which she lost, was found by somebody because they tried to use her Gap card. And then they tried to, I don't know, change the address on the Gap card, but they didn't try the credit cards. And I think the reason for that is most people, if they're even partially smart, know the minute that somebody loses their wallet, the first thing they do is cancel all their cards.
Goodbye.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I have, anytime any purchase is made on my cards, I get an SMS, like within seconds.
Yeah.
So I know, you know, and there's a thing on there, I can just click the link if I didn't do it.
Well, if I lost my American Express card, I do immediately get an SMS every time I use it, within seconds. But I don't know. I'm beginning to think that I'm going to start. I'm going to lower the amount of things I have in my wallet and keep them somewhere else. Yes. And just the ones I absolutely need and have to use on a given day. That's what I'll keep in my wallet. I don't need my American Express card. It's on my Apple in my Apple wallet. I don't need my bank card because it's in my Apple wallet on my iPhone. So,
well, Alex, if you traveled as much as I did, yeah, you would develop. I have 3 different wallets for 3 different purposes.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I have
fake wallets.
Yeah, I have 2. One wallet for all my normal purchases, and the other wallet for the hookers. So, you know, 'cause all the ones I know take cards, right? No, but you were going to defend Trump, you said, Bree?
Well, yeah. I mean, in general.
Go ahead.
I was also going to tell you that, you know, in terms of your customer support situation there with your GoDaddy, yeah. I've got that beat because I had a phone that I bought recently on AliExpress and I had to return it. Mm-hmm. And I actually did a whole video on this on YouTube. It's like, it runs 40 minutes, just about how absurd the process was. And eventually I got some of the money back, but not after massive delays, being cursed at from the seller and threatened, being harassed by the seller, having evidence falsified, fabricated by the seller, you know. So that's far worse.
You know, I've got to. You know what I got to do is the next time I call GoDaddy, I'm going to do it on Skype. Okay, I'm going to use the phone system on Skype, and I'm going to just video the whole thing.
Yes.
And then I'm going to once I've done it, I'm going to put it up. I'm going to say this is how bad GoDaddy service is.
On YouTube, make sure your headline is, GoDaddy service is slower than ever. Exclamation point.
Yeah.
You know, you have to have some kind of a title that.
Yeah.
Is, you know,
well, the thing is, I used the chat today because if I don't use the chat, I have to listen to their fucking music. And their music is so bad that you can actually go online and somebody has archived it. So they say, if you ever miss GoDaddy, here's the one song they keep playing over and over and over and over.
I know the malls around here play the same songs.
Really?
And like they're instrumental versions, but then they'll have these little hooks in them, and I automatically know them, so I whistle them just while I'm walking down the hall, and people will look over. I don't know what it is that I don't know if you know this, but not everybody can whistle.
That's right.
I'm not very good at it. This is a
rare talent for me here.
I'm not very good at it.
Is that right?
I can't even do it anymore.
I can whistle three or four different ways.
Really? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Well, with the lips, and I can do it with my teeth. I can. This is a fun one. When I'm in a quiet room or big room, I can sound like a bird. And people will look around like where the bird is, you know. And then I can whistle with my tongue. You know, so
I can't whistle.
I didn't realize that not everybody can do this.
See, I'm trying right now. I can't. Wow. I used to be able to. Pitch. I've lost my ability to whistle. Boy, everything's going. The whistling, the penis, they're all going, you know.
Well, Alex. Okay, so defending Trump. I'm defending Trump.
Yeah.
How do we go from mall music to Trump? One of them is "The Lady is a Tramp." That's
okay, but wait a minute. But that's you're not defending Trump by singing "The Lady is a Tramp."
Here's my defense of Trump, because Phil is not here. In terms of well, you can pick any topic, and I'll rationalize it or tell you why I think it's.
I'll tell you what. I got something here. This is good. Well, go ahead. I mean, what you're going to try and do is be the devil's advocate, right?
Overall, I have to say that I like that he is a disruptor. Now, you can argue that this is bad for the country, but I don't know. Sometimes you need a president to say things and do things that others are not willing to do. One of the things I think he sends a message, basically, don't try to come into our country illegally. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good message. A lot of the countries out there that are doing well now, they basically say you can only come in if you add to our economy and if you're a good civil person. So if you don't add to our country and if you're not a civil person, then you're going to go out. And I think that's fair enough. To say something like that.
But that's not what he's saying. If he were coming from the area of trying to get a better class of people coming into the country, you could argue that. But it's the mean way in which he does it. He doesn't do it in a civil, decent way, and you don't feel he is doing it because he wants to protect America. Yes, Rob.
All right, I got one for Bree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Charlottesville, Virginia. There are good people on both sides. Defend.
You had to pick the one that probably. Well, because I didn't follow that. I'm not in the States. But here's the thing.
So, all right, I'll tell you then what it was. We had that horrible situation where the white supremacists went and they infiltrated Charlottesville, Virginia, and they met up with obviously some opposition there, mm-hmm. and there was a little bit of violence, and there was a girl who was killed because one of these nuts backed his car down the street at high speed and he ran somebody over.
Okay.
Trump did not. Everybody was calling for him to come out and condemn what happened.
Yeah.
He waited. He didn't do anything. Finally, he said, well, a lot went on over there, and there are good people on both, sides and all this.
Well, now, when he said that, what was his perception of what a side was? In other words,
well, there was the supremacists.
For him, there's Democrats and Republicans. So maybe he on that day, it could have been that he was thinking in those terms, like that it had become political, and there were people from
he was talking about
parties that were on both sides.
He was talking about the people at the rally on both sides.
Nazis.
He was talking about the Nazis, and he was talking about those who were there to say, we oppose you.
So I think he didn't really understand the situation, and he was trying to be.
Bree, you're president of the United States. You should understand the problem and the situation and the nuances of various things, or keep your fucking mouth shut.
One president can't know everything. I think we need 3.
Well, don't try and tell that to Donald Trump, because he thinks that he knows everything. Yes, Rob.
So
give me another one.
I would say to you about not knowing about everything. If this was immediate after it happened, you'd say, okay, well, he didn't know. This was a day and a half, 2 days after.
Yeah. Well, and that's the key. That's when so many other people come into the discussion. People on the outside who don't really understand. I mean, for example, there's this case of this. I don't know if it's an actor, or gay black guy.
Big story here. Big story here.
All these people came in and said, "Wow, this is terrible. This is crazy." And then something happened where he.
There was one person I know that. Wait, Bree. There was one person I know that didn't feel immediately that that situation was real.
Who was that?
Me. I said it here on the air. These guys will back me up.
People on both sides.
No, but the point I'm making is, I mean, the thing with this kid who's in a lot of trouble now, in a lot of trouble. The problem there was that a lot of people immediately jumped to his defense. Oh, it's horrible. Only in America could this happen. You know, the Spike Lees of the world were doing this.
Okay.
And wait a minute. Let me finish what I'm saying. And
no, I gotta be fair.
and even Nancy Pelosi, I think, wrote a tweet condemning it, and now she hasn't said anything. And a lot of people are decrying that, saying that the media was ready to believe this kid, Jussie, I think is his name. That they were ready to believe him immediately without any question. And I started to think about it, and I thought, well, that's not the worst thing. I mean, obviously it's a knee-jerk reaction, and you feel he's gay, so you got to stand up for that, and he's black, and you got to stand up for that. It had all the little numbers ticked off in it. But then I started to think about it, and I went, you know, Nancy Pelosi wrote it because she really believed it happened, because Jussie made the world believe it happened. And so she was reacting to what was perceived to have happened. And in that, she wasn't really wrong. You know, and the people who came to the defense of Jussie and against the situation were really coming out against the situation as they perceived it to be, not as in the end it turned out to be. Rob, you had your hand up.
Sorry.
Rob had his hand up.
That's the thing.
Yeah, Rob had his hand up. Rob?
I was going to say maybe he did us all a favor. Maybe by coming out and doing what he did, maybe now we'll slow down a little bit and not just rush to judgment on all of these things. It was sort of a smack in the face saying, you know what? Not every one of them is true.
Well, what's strange is it looked phony baloney to me from the very beginning. I didn't, you know, and I kind of felt bad about saying that because, again, you know, the guy's gay and he's black, and God forbid it should have really happened. But somehow it just didn't seem like there was anything to make it believable. Yes, Charlie.
Well, you know, he still denies that he paid these guys to do that. He still denies that it's a false report.
Well, what's he going to say?
That's the Trump playbook.
I know, but I'm just saying the whole story's not in yet. He hasn't been arrested.
He's facing a felony charge.
Still haven't even gone before the grand jury yet.
For me, this is a non-story because it, you know, and we get caught up in that, and Trump plays on those things. And, you know, for the most part, I'd say like 90% of what people, well, maybe not that high, maybe like 70% of what people complain about Trump, it doesn't really matter. You know, and you just get caught up in his game.
Well, the guy
who controls it.
Trevor Noah, who does the Daily Show now, supposedly said something. I didn't see the thing, but he supposedly said that this whole Jussie, I can't remember his last name now.
Smollett.
Huh?
Jesse Smollett.
Smollett situation is something that would make Trump very happy because it's a way for him to point at the press and call them fake news. You know,
exactly.
And you know, I mean, I think what Smollett did was terrible, but I don't think the reaction was from a point of. I mean, let's face it. He created a situation which was purely believable in today's America.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that's the thing that we're not understanding here. We can't hate the press. We can't hate. These people who like Spike Lee and so on who went, oh, you see, because it does exist in America. That's what made it so believable.
People have been attacked at Trump rallies. We've got it on film.
Yeah, but I mean, but gays are getting attacked all the time. Black gays are going to be attacked even worse. You know, and so when you heard that story initially, you know, you didn't doubt it. But then when I heard more about it, I started to doubt it because it just didn't seem to make any sense. What, they don't have any cameras that shot this in a city that's got more cameras than iPhones?
Was that in Chicago?
Yeah, it was in Chicago.
Yeah, that's what didn't ring true either. I mean, I don't think of Chicago as MAGA country. There's not a lot of Trump supporters there.
Plus, I mean, I had trouble with it when I heard that because it's like, well, 3 guys in Chicago got into a scuffle and not one of them had a gun. I mean, there's got to be.
That too.
I mean,
that too. Yeah. But it. By the way, Fox has not yet said they're going to fire Jussie Smollett. Jussie Smollett. Apparently, they're not ready to rush to that kind of decision. Which,
well, good for them.
Well, good for them. Good for them. Yeah. I mean, I think if this did happen this way, it's terrible. It took resources away from the police department in Chicago, where they need every resource they can have.
They say he faces felony charge of disorderly conduct.
Wow. But these other guys don't get charged, and here's the reason why. Because the only guilt that Smollett has in this is that he made the claim and filed a false police report. Now, these guys didn't do anything. They were in on this little plot. But if it was just a matter of getting it on video and then showing it to the world or something, that would be one thing. But he actually went to the police and filed a report. And that is illegal. And so that's why he's guilty and they're not.
So, Alex, the other thing is there are policies that Trump has and things he has done that you have said you agree with. In fact, even on this show today. And yet, why aren't we talking more about those?
Well, wait. What did I say on today's show that he did that was good? And by the way, I still stand by my claim that a stop clock is right twice a day. This guy can fuck up and work overtime to try and fuck up, and eventually he's going to do something right.
But here's the thing. When I hear Trump news, I don't go into it with the preconceived idea that he is that way.
Yeah, but you see, I don't mean disrespect here, Bree, but you're sitting over there in Dubai. We're having to put up with this shit.
Yeah.
Well, we put up with it a little bit here because he caused the whole Saudi-Qatar thing, And
yeah.
I don't like that because I can't fly Qatar Airways anymore, and that was a cheaper option for me.
Why can't you fly Qatar? What happened with that?
Well, he came over here and he said, there's stuff going on. We got to figure out who's right, who's wrong. And then after he left Saudi Arabia, Trump basically gave them the power in the region. He basically said, you guys do what you want to do. I got your back. This is all going to be good. Mm-hmm. And so then Saudi said, Qatar's not playing around, not doing well with us. So, they're the bad people in this area. And then it was a rift. If Trump hadn't said anything, or if he hadn't come here, I don't know that we would necessarily have that rift that we have today.
Let me ask you the relationship of Dubai to Qatar, okay? They're all part of the Arab Emirates?
No.
No.
I know. Yeah. I mean, I'm not the best person to...
yeah, but you live there, so you know the relationship between them.
It's very bad right now.
Yeah.
I can't...
Well, how does Dubai feel towards Qatar? The same way? I mean, do they side with the Saudis?
That it's more complicated because here there are 7 different emirates. It's kind of like you asking, how does New York feel about the wall, and how does New Mexico feel about the wall, and how do people in Montana feel about the wall? Like there would be different. There would be a different
perception. Yeah. But nevertheless, what I'm saying is, let's say Saudi Arabia were to go to war against somebody in the region, Jordan or whatever. Okay.
Well, they are at war with Yemen.
With Yemen. Okay. So what side would Dubai be on in that fight? Would they be siding with the Saudis? Would they be siding with the Yemenis? Or would they just be keeping their options open?
Officially, they would side with the Saudis. And then also officially, they would send as much aid packages as they could to anybody affected in Yemen. So they would try to support the Yemenis by giving them donations,
That's very nice. That's very nice.
Yeah, so they try to, see it both ways.
Wow, that's terrific. That's terrific. I have a couple.
The trade with China. I think Trump is, he has done some things that, in those cases, I think that we were getting the short end of the stick, and I do think I don't know if it's net positive, but I think him calling that out and saying, we're not going to pay this much for that, or we're not going to lose that much money for that. I think those are good things, but you're right. The way that he does it, sometimes very crass.
Charles, you have your hand up.
Yeah, that's one thing that Trump demonstrates his ignorance about is he thinks that he's helping the situation with these tariffs. He thinks we're collecting money from China because of these tariffs. But what we're doing is collecting money from our own people because we have to pay the tariff. The Chinese don't pay the tariff. The people who buy the product.
That's right.
Pay the tariff.
Yeah.
Does not understand
the only thing that I said that I heard that Trump was for, and I laud him for this, and that is that he feels that we should be paying the same price for drugs in the United States as a Canadian pays for it in Canada. Which
he hasn't done anything to do that.
Huh?
He hasn't done anything to
No,
make
he
that
hasn't.
the case.
No, he hasn't. But he tells everybody who will listen to him that that's what he would like to do. So why is it he can put all his energy behind something as stupid as the wall, which is just a ridiculous idea, and not do something like that, which would truly benefit Americans?
Well, because all Americans would probably be in favor of that, and he doesn't serve all Americans. I call the way I see it. Let's be real. Trump serves angry white people.
Does he wake up every morning and go, "What can I do today to piss off the people who aren't my base?"
Right, but his base are angry white people. I live in the heart. I live in a county where Trump is Trump's a 90% guy here. If I live in a housing development with 200 houses, 199 of them would put a Trump sign in the yard. I would be the guy without one. I'm just.
What are they angry about? Okay, I know things you can be angry about, but I want to know what they're angry about, because it can't be the same things I'm angry about.
Listen, we live in a pretty rural area, but we're about 25 miles from a pretty large metropolitan city in Columbus, Ohio, which, some people might laugh at, but last I was told, it's the 15th largest city in America. It's actually pretty heavily populated, and this area has a ton of industry. And, look, just like anywhere else, 35 years ago, an uneducated white male could go get a job in a factory or whatever, kind of like I was still able to do, and they made a lot of money. And now all that industry has gone by the wayside. Columbus is basically it's gone down some in way before Trump, but in the mid 90s, let's say, it was overrun with Mexican immigrants. I shouldn't say overrun, because that makes it sound like I didn't like it or whatever, but I'm just saying, a lot of Mexican immigrants moved to the area at the time. Later on, Columbus, Ohio became the largest area in the United States of Somalian refugees. They sunk into isolationist thinking. Because a lot of the jobs went away because of things like trade and union busting and stuff. That's how it's how a guy like Sherrod Brown has been elected to the U.S. Senate here, 3 times now, which is why I've said before, it is possible for a sensible person who doesn't act like a complete fucking idiot to get elected in states like this, like Ohio and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. Trump was just the first person with the big microphone to come out and, say it, and then he did it in sort of a lambasting way that, people like that, right? they were, ready for something else apparently from what we all gathered. But I mean, they're angry about a lot of that stuff. I mean, and like I was saying before, I will be honest and be real. The race issues in this country has greatly improved from a century ago and 2 centuries ago or whatever, but it's not there. I mean, I told you guys before, I still grew up in a home where at Thanksgiving dinner or whatever, the word nigger could come out, and I mean, there wouldn't be people with open mouths. Oh my God, what did you? I mean, everyone just kept pouring their drink or eating their. I mean, it wasn't a big. I mean, not everyone felt that way.
I mean, the fact that
underbelly of this country is just
the fact that and I think Charlie would agree with me on this, since he is a person of the black persuasion, that the way in which you used that word at the dinner table wasn't meant to hurt anybody. A lot of times that word was used to hurt. Now it's just any use of that word is considered, forbidden.
But I mean, I guess what I'm saying is there are still parts of this country where this country has always been and continues to be very tribal. Not just in politics. I mean, we live in a rural area, farm community. We don't like the people from Columbus. No, I'm not moving to Columbus. I mean, I'm just telling you, this is what someone around here might say. There's no way I'm moving up there, sitting in all that traffic and living with all them niggers. I mean, it's still rural versus, large metropolitan cities.
Well, at least they didn't say kikes. Okay, so I feel safe for the time being. Charlie, how do you feel about that? You came from Texas. Now, Texas is where I said I came across the N word constantly. And when I would call people on it, and this was years ago, they would say, "Oh, well, that's just the term I use to describe them. I don't mean anything bad by it." How did you feel about it? Because you heard it a lot, I'm sure.
Actually, I lived in Austin for 43 years.
Oh, well, then that's not like
the liberal capital of America, I think.
Yeah.
So, no, there wasn't any of that in Austin.
Yeah,
Austin. I don't want people to think that around here it's an everyday thing. I mean, there's not a weekly meeting of the Ku Klux Klan anywhere around here.
Well, there was in Houston, Texas, at the police department. So when I was there, so
yeah. But I'm just saying. But I guess I'm saying there isn't one that I'm aware of. But if I were in the locker room at work and someone came up and invited me to one, I wouldn't also be shocked. Yeah, I mean, it's like because. That's just it's like 50-50. I mean, this is just with the jobs and the immigration and the way people.
And so that's what they're fearful of. That's what they're fearful.
I mean, they're fucking white people are just fucking angry. I mean, they talk about angry black people. It's like, I don't know. I mean, they got a right to be angry sometimes. Just to fucking. I mean, I'm white. I don't even understand white people. So I
mean, Bree held up a sign that I don't know why he held it up. But it was thanking OAC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for losing the 25,000 jobs at Amazon. And Bree, I will have to answer that little sign or whatever it was. Yeah. Is that who's that? Is that is?
Want to see these are the ones who have messaged me today. That want me to, they say hi.
Oh, well, I get those all the time. And
but these are real people, Alex.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, oh, yeah. What's interesting is that you keep them on your phone. That's what I find interesting.
I just woke up. I'm going through the list. I get 3 or 4 tonight.
No, but the thing is...
Alex, I can explain why they messaged me.
Well,
and they're real.
Wait a minute. Well, I'll tell you. Is it on Facebook?
No.
Oh.
It's through a messenger, a WeChat.
Yeah. Well.
The reason why is, in this city, a lot of people come here to find jobs. It's like New York. Mm-hmm. And when they can't find a job, after a while, what do? they will become a waitress or or a maid or something. They'll become menial. So at a certain point, they realize that if they can go on dates or if they meet someone, they might be able to A, get a place to stay, and B, at least get invited to dinner and have a free meal. There are, I would say, every week I get at least a dozen.
Well, they can charge you $300 for a blowjob.
Some of them probably are in that area, but some are just people looking for friends, connections, a way to get a job. So you never know. I don't respond to them.
I wouldn't respond to them either. I mean, I get them on whenever I fall under my 5,000 people that are on my Facebook page, and there's an opening. I suddenly get this slew of women almost wearing nothing, saying they want to be my friend. And I go, and so I immediately find somebody on the list that wants to be there, so I can fill up that one slot, so I don't keep getting that spam from them. But anyway, the point that I'm making is that you brought up the jobs at Amazon. And quite frankly, for the most part here in New York, we're very happy that Amazon is not moving in.
Why is that?
Well, for several reasons. Number one, we have enough problems with crowded traffic, with crowded subways and so on, especially going out to Queens, without having that add to it. That it was going to add too much. And where were those people going to live? They weren't going to live in Queens. The kind of money that Amazon pays isn't enough that you could even live in New York City. So what are they going to do? Are they going to all commute to those jobs? Those jobs weren't really going to produce anything except a lot of headaches for the people of New York. And so most New Yorkers are happy and also, our mayor said something that was kind of interesting. He assailed Amazon for just giving up too easily. That they didn't ask them not to be here. There were people protesting against it. Okay? And then Amazon made the decision that, well, we just don't want to do it then. And he felt
they can go elsewhere.
He felt they reneged on a deal, is what he felt, actually. So, but it was just not a practical thing to do. Plus the idea of Amazon finding a place to produce goods and services was to have an infusion of income into certain communities that could use it. Columbus, Ohio, or Cleveland, Ohio could have used an Amazon center there. A lot of cities in the United States that actually went out and pitched getting this.
They applied here in Columbus, as a matter of fact.
And Columbus could have used it better, and there'd be more people available and more housing available for those people than here in New York City, which is congested already. So that's the reason why, Rob. It just wasn't.
I don't know that I buy it, but okay.
Yeah,
because I kind of think of it as being a little short-sighted, sort of the same way the New York Islanders left Long Island, because now that all that revenue is gone, all those hotels, all those businesses.
Well, remember, we didn't tell them they couldn't be here. They decided on their own because people had a negative reaction to it, that they were just going to pull up anchor and take off for some other port. Yes, Bree.
Well, they probably figured out that they were going to have a tough future there. That they would be constantly under pressure by unions and these kinds of things, and so they probably just saw that as a difficult time ahead. But this happened in Pittsburgh for a while. In the 90s, we had all the movie companies move in, and they were all making films. And one of the reasons why was because we didn't have a union. And so later the union came, and then the Hollywood production companies just pick another place. So you can so AOC, I think, is right. But then, okay, does that mean that the Northern Virginian people are somehow crazy?
Well, to begin with, that note said AOC, and that's because they've got some kind of thing against her, because she really had nothing to do with Amazon pulling up stakes in this deal. She just, I think, made some remarks about how she thought it was great that they were not going to do it. But she didn't. She was not one of the leaders of the coalition to stop it from happening. You know.
Right. But she carries a lot of weight in the media. Now, I don't know how much weight she will carry in legislation. Some people claim that she will be the one to get Trump reelected because she's a lightning rod that can be used in the media against that. So I don't know. You know, I do believe that AOC is pretty awesome, that she genuinely cares for the people she represents. But at the same time, she does represent one district. She, you know, in New York.
Yeah.
She's not going to be relatable to everyone everywhere.
And I don't think she's trying to be. I think the only thing she is she won this thing. You know, you got to realize she went up against a guy, I think, who had that post for I don't know how long. And she went in there. She was just a bartender and decided for a hoot, I'll run. And somehow she got the nomination for the primary, and then she won the general election.
That's the story. That's the story they want you to believe.
Yeah.
She was recruited.
What do you mean she was recruited?
You saw the documentary, right?
No.
She was recruited by the Justice Democrats. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they had over 100.
Because Crowley was a corporatist.
No, I see. Okay. Well, in any event, it still is one of those stories of somebody coming up from nowhere. And so she got a lot of publicity. Plus, the reason she got a lot of publicity, I have to say this, she's hot looking. You know, she's easy on
one of the considerations.
What were we going to say, Rob?
She's spunky. She's got that.
Yeah, but she's hot, isn't she? I mean, you saw all these women wearing white in the State of the Union address, and who was the one who stood out? Her. You know.
Fox News. That's why they love her. You know, she's got the look.
Yeah.
They're gonna hire her as a commentator.
Alex, I want to tell you, when I was in graduate school, I dated someone almost exactly like AOC, but she was Korean instead of Puerto Rican.
Well,
but I know exactly this mentality of the Democratic Socialists. Mm-hmm. And this started back in the late 90s, early aughts, and they realized they understand communication theories, and they realized what they had to do in order to get there into the conversation. AOC is a result of that. Almost 20 years of discussions, poring over communication theory, poring over what gets in the media and why, and she was the result of that.
Yeah, well,
it's not a bad thing.
No, not a bad thing at all.
Not at all.
And as a democratic socialist, I'm all for it. You know. So.
Who are you going to listen to, Elizabeth Warren or AOC?
Oh, AOC.
Absolutely.
You know. But by the way, let me bring something up. I mean, I've been over the last 24 hours. I'm bothered by Bernie Sanders. Does anybody else feel the same way?
No.
I feel no. Let me argue with you.
Not feeling the
Charles,
burn,
for a
Alex?
Here I'm not feeling the burn, and I'll tell you why. One of the reasons why he was so effective back in the last election was because he only had really one perceivable opponent, and that was Hillary Clinton. Now he's got a whole bunch of competition out there who have a lot of the same theories he does and prescribe to the same philosophies that he does. And I just don't think he's going to show up as well in the end in this field of people. But I mean, I just think, hey, Bernie, you know, you didn't do it before. Let all these people have their shot now. That's my feeling on it. Yes, Jeff.
Well, my attitude about Bernie is let him do whatever he wants to try. But part of the thing is I looked the other day on the news, and it says that he had 40% of the Democrats' money.
Well, he got in one day, was it something like $6 million? Yeah.
I know.
Yes, he did. That's how, and he got it all from small donors, people like me.
Yeah, and I understand people being excited about him and so on, but to begin with, I don't think he could beat Trump. you know.
I could beat Trump into the ground.
Oh no,
because he stands for what people want. People don't like not having health insurance, not having health care.
But yeah, that's an easy go, because you know there are about 5 or 6 other people that are all for universal care who are running. Okay, there are some who don't think it's practical, but they're for it. You know,
that's because they're idiots. Every other industrialized country has universal health care, and they have less money than we have.
The problem, Charles, is we never have. And so to go from what we have now to the complete opposite direction is not an easy jump for America to make all at once. You know, it's got to be something that's done in baby steps.
Tons of money.
What's going to pay for it, though? That's the question.
I mean, we're paying twice what Canada pays per person for health care.
You got to realize that, for instance, England, when they went to their health care program, did it right after World War II. They decided they were going to give themselves a gift, and that was the gift they gave themselves for having gone through that war. Well, everything in England was decimated at that point, so you could start at ground, you know, at zero and work your way to a national health care program. Here, we've have so entrenched the way doctors do business, the insurance companies exist, the prescription, and we go on and on and on. And it's such an industry that to just automatically dismantle that is like tearing down several giant high-rises. You know, I agree with you. What we need, and we need it now, is universal health care. But I don't know if practically it can be done that fast. Okay.
Meanwhile, people are dying. Tens of
I agree with it.
Die every year, and they don't.
Hey, I'm an old fart who relies on my Social Security and my AFTRA health program to keep me alive. All right, I'm very lucky. If I didn't have that, I would have to pay that 20%. You know, and if I wasn't old enough, I wouldn't have any health care at all. All right, so I know exactly what you're talking about, and nobody in this country should have to ever worry about how they're going to pay for their medical bills because there's something wrong with them. It should be taken care of. That's what we do for each other. That's why we're a country, so that we help each other.
But if people wanted this, why, as soon as we got close to getting something, they voted Republican, and we lost the House and the Senate, and then we lost the president. Why?
The pharmaceutical companies and health insurance companies paid millions and millions of dollars to lie to people to make them believe that it was not in their best interest.
I don't know. You know, Charlie, you're absolutely.
Then we have to wait here.
Charlie, you're absolutely right.
Bullshit.
I find it incomprehensible that an average American would say he didn't want free health care.
Or they would love it, but they
single payer
don't trust
health
the government. They don't want their government. They don't want the government.
Oh, they're going to have death panels, don't you know?
The insurance company has death panels.
Of course they do. Of course they do.
Pay for operations for people and they die.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
But they're only going to kill white people. Because the government and the insurance companies love immigrants and black people.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah.
I mean, hey, I've lived here my whole life, but you know,
yeah. But at
some point you learn to not go to the local diner. You know, I mean, because old angry white people. You know.
But so far we don't have. I you know, just like you know, you hope that somebody will come out with something that's called a killer app that you can put on your computer and it does something wonderful. Where's the killer app in running against Trump? Who is that killer app? You know, which one of these people is the most capable of beating Donald Trump?
Look, I think Joe Biden is the guy that they need to run against him. I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with that. I wish he would have ran last time.
Well, do you know how old he's going to be when
Trump's age?
Trump's age, right?
Actually, he's going to be 78.
I mean, I guess I don't care though. I mean, he looks fine to me.
He looks fine, but you know, believe me, I know you could go at any time.
Well, hey, we've had presidents die in office before, and in some cases
Yeah,
we were the better.
Well, let me put it this way. I think you're right in this respect. Biden is the best bet if you want somebody who's going to take Trump out to lunch every time Trump opens his fucking mouth. Biden will take care of him. All right? I think Biden in many ways is Trump's worst fear. More than any other candidate out there. I think he thinks he can beat Bernie and he can beat any of the other people that are running. Some of them are still too new to really be running. But I think Biden worries him because Biden ain't going to take any shit out of him. You know?
And they can't play the socialist card on Joe Biden.
Not at all.
At all. And I still say, I mean, if they team him up with someone, similar in nature, like, hey, Sherrod Brown in Ohio, I talked about him before, is talking about running for president. But don't you think that if they put a guy like that on a ticket with someone like Joe Biden, I mean, Sherrod Brown's been elected statewide in Ohio. Winning Ohio is going to be key. I mean, it's key every time. Sherrod Brown has got the blue collar look, the way came up in the life. I mean, very
well, there's another good thing about Sherrod Brown, and that's this: I don't know a thing about him, and neither does most of America.
Right.
And I think a candidate that people don't know a lot about is a better candidate than one that they've been having to put up with for years.
I think the only place that we're going to run into trouble with the Democratic Party is when I say something like that. The people, well, there you go again. You just want two white men. It's like,
let me ask you this, though.
You want to win, or you want to run people of this nature or that nature and lose?
I got a cool question to ask you. This is a quick one. Who is the worst candidate so far out of the Democratic batch that you think does not have a chance no matter what?
Castro.
Really?
I'd say Tulsi Gabbard.
I don't even know who Castro is, to tell you the truth.
I think what Pocahontas? What's her name?
Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah,
Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren.
Would kick
no,
Trump's
I
butt.
think she's a terrible candidate. I got to tell you, you have to consider. You have to consider demeanor. You have to consider look. You have
What
to.
about policy?
No, I'm telling you. Do you want them to win or you want them to lose?
This is America, right?
It doesn't make any difference if they win.
We all know.
We
know Hillary Clinton would have made a much better president than Donald Trump.
Right.
But she didn't have the charisma.
But she didn't
have it
hacking of voting machines.
And I don't think that Elizabeth Warren has it. I don't think her Q. I don't think her Q rating is high enough.
There are certain people that serve the purpose that they serve, and they serve it well. And I think Elizabeth Warren is a fine senator from Massachusetts.
Right.
And I think that's why.
And that's where she should stay.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I like her.
That's right.
I have nothing against her, but I just don't. I just think that this is a mediaized age, and you have to look at who is electable, and a lot of that has to do with the way you look. They
say John Kennedy won in '61 because of
his looks,
his appearance on television.
Yep, exactly. Hey, listen, we have a little theme playing. If you listen to that closely, this has been a really nice discussion tonight. There was something missing here that kind of aided it into being a good discussion.
Wonder what that is.
I wonder what that was. Hey, Rob Alfano, thank you so much for having joined us. Also, a big thank you to Charlie Wallace. Always good having you here. Bree, nice when you call in from Dubai. Jeff, always good to have you here. And Josh, wow, what a great, intelligent, decent panel this was. Give a big wave goodbye so everybody can see you going away. Okay, and I'll wave back. How's that? Okay, thank you, everybody. Hopefully we'll see you again tomorrow night, right back here. Tomorrow night, of course, as usual, Damien will not be on because he has not been able to be on for the last week or so because of technical problems. But hopefully he'll be back with us really soon. Listen, stay tuned now for Jack Bishop and The Intersection, and I will see you again tomorrow night, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Same time, same station in life. In the meantime, if you see her, tell her I love her, okay? Bye-bye, everybody.